Hello and welcome to episode 362 of the award-winning Fergo and The Freak. I'm that bloke from Rugby League Project, Andrew Ferguson. You can find me on Twitter at AndrewRLP. And joining me yours, as always, is that yammering clam LeagueFreak. You can also find on Twitter at LeagueFreak. How you going there, mate?
How dare you use a term like that? That term, Andrew, is sexist, and I would never use that term.
Let's be honest. You dropped it pre-show. You knew I was going to bring it up.
I was reading out a text message. And
Yes.
That's all I was doing. I wasn't saying it. It was somebody else said it.
Yeah.
I was just passing on the message.
An avid fan?
Well, I wouldn't call them a fan.
No, I'm going to call him a fan. Avid fan.
They should be thankful.
Very, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. Huge supporter of the podcast.
Yeah.
Occasionally does some stuff for us, but that's just something that they like to do, just to give a little bit back.
Yeah, and as they should. And the next time they should try harder, do better.
It's the least they could do, really. Now we've got the gibbering out of the way. We've got a few little news pieces to talk about, and we're going to see how many YouTube comments we can get through, as well as a few emails.
True, that's true. So
we're just serving the humans here.
We're trying our best anyway. So the first bit of news, a couple of days ago, the Panthers have finally sacked Tyron May, and it was over an ill-timed and ill-conceived Instagram post where
I'm so stupid about this.
I know, and he held a pity party pretty much at the end of full time at the grand final, and the Panthers were just pissed off about it, and it brought not great attention to the club. It's the first time he's really done that from memory. I can't think of anything else that might have done that as well, but they finally sacked him, and I have not seen one single Panthers fan that wasn't very happy that he is gone, and good riddance.
It's just nonsense that he can go and do what he did and be found guilty of an actual crime.
Yeah,
that's fine. These things happen. You put up a post on Instagram that is a little bit naff.
Yeah, that doesn't read the room.
Fuck you, you're sacked. And you're like, you know what? You got it the wrong way around, Penrith. The moment he did a crime, that's when you go, fuck you, you're sacked. Not when he just does something that's legal on Instagram. That's you've got it wrong. About 12 months wrong.
The only thing I can think is that maybe in the player contracts, and I don't know this is just a guess, but maybe in the player contracts, he had done enough things to have warranted discipline by the club that they finally got to a legal position where they were able to sack him. That's all I can think, because I agree 100% with you.
I think Penrith just took the soft option initially, and this is probably more about trying to save their own backside, because it's looking pretty clear that Tyron May's he's a bad egg.
Yeah.
Without going into it too much further than that. And it looks like, because he's one of those bad eggs, though, that has a lot of, he's kind of like the center of attention. So a lot of the teams sort of are drawn to him. None more so than Nathan Cleary, apparently. So getting rid of him might be seen as a way to get all the players focused back on playing football and not on supporting this drop kick.
Yeah, and the weird thing for me is, if you looked at it from a pure footballing point of view, you would say that this is an improvement for the Panthers. It doesn't really matter who they bring in as a replacement, in terms of if they just brought another forward onto their bench, if they carried somebody that could only play in the halves. It doesn't really matter. He wasn't a good football player. But you're right. All of the distractions and stuff, they don't need it. And the good thing, if you're the Panthers club, you look at this and you're on the board or you're part of the management team, you can make this move and know that no one is going to turn around at any point in the future and say, well, you got rid of this player for disciplinary reasons and you cost us this, because there's nothing to cost like their premiers. Everyone's job is basically safe. unless Tyron May, for the next 12 months at least. So the club was in a strong position to do it. I wish they had done it a long time ago. I know a lot of Panthers fans do as well. And quite honestly, I'm just happy that this is completely behind us now.
Yeah, although it is the off-season, so the media will be... they'll be trying to make stories about this for eternity. I mean, the beauty is some club will probably want to sign him, and that club most likely will be the Tigers. So, there'll be that. And if the Tigers aren't interested in him, which it seems like they're not, some dickheads in the media will start saying, the Tigers should go after Tyron May. He's a premiership winner, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And
one of the things I saw is that the media trolls the players' Instagram accounts, and even like his brother apparently posted something on Instagram. And I was just thinking, like, what's it like to be a journalist who sits down and is like, I might look at all of the players in the family Instagrams and see if I can come up with something. It just shows where journalism is at right now, especially rugby league journalism. I thought it was a little bit embarrassing, where things that are maybe footnotes that could be at the bottom of an article, they're making like big news out of it. And I understand why to a certain degree, but, there's other stuff to talk about. And
the crazy thing is you only got to go back to the 70s and 80s, even the early 90s, when it was the off-season in rugby league.
Mm-hmm.
You just didn't hear about it. But everyone just accepted that, rugby league just doesn't get played during the summer, so we'll just go and watch the cricket then.
Yeah, it was like after the grand final, a switch was flicked and it was cricket season. And, if we had test matches and things, they were a bit of a bonus. But it wasn't like rugby league. And it's the same thing with cricket. Cricket, like, what was the end of the cricket season? It used to be the one-day final, what did they call that one-day series?
Oh, what was it? Tri-Series? I can't remember.
Yeah, they didn't call it World Series by the time we were watching it. Anyway, the end of the Tri-Series final, like literally the next day, cricket season was over and it was football season again. Yeah. And I don't think cricket has got to that same point, but definitely the football codes in Australia are now 12 months a year.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's 4 to 5 months of those 12 months is tedious journalism at its absolute worst. The rest is when the tedious journalism is at its best. Don't know if there's much difference there, but it's all tedious either way.
True. Now, we had also a little bit of news from in the Northern Hemisphere. We had the Ottawa Aces. They relocated, which is a pretty cool task to do when you don't have any players or administrators or headquarters or anything at all. And they moved from Ottawa in Canada to Coventry in the southern...
Hang on, Cornwall.
Oh, Cornwall, sorry. Yeah, I said Coventry. I don't know why I keep saying Coventry, but Cornwall, which is in the very southern part of England.
Which, as I've seen from some of the comments on Twitter, it's basically like for English people, it's like trying to travel from, say, Huddersfield to Saturn to watch football. Yeah, it's a long way. And because of that, it's so far to travel. They'll try and find a way to kill that team off, I guess.
Well, the last fucking Pom that didn't piss and moan about having to travel somewhere was Jimmy Cook. He was the only one that's had enough of a fucking brain in his head to say, you know what? Give me a ship. I'm going to fill it full of shit, and I'm going to Tahiti.
You know what? I reckon Jimmy Cook was out of his time. I reckon he could have been possibly the finest first ever president of rugby league.
It would have been fantastic. He's actually, I'm a massive fan of James Cook, and I consider him to be a genius. I think he's the greatest explorer in human history, and I don't think it's close. I admire him for so many different reasons. And number one was that he sort of looked around and said, hey, I'd rather be on a fucking boat in the middle of the Pacific than in this fucking rainy place. Get me out of here.
It's it's understandable that he wanted to be on a boat somewhere, navigating waters where no one knows what's out there. That seamless aimlessness of never knowing how the hell we might get back, if we ever do get back, or where we're going to end up. That to him was more important than being in Liverpool.
Well, can you imagine, right, if you were told to jump in your car and just drive to the middle of New South Wales, but then the thing was that in the middle of New South Wales, you are going to a place where there is literally going to be nobody within 6 hours of you, and you're not allowed to take a phone, and how scary that would be, just in case you got a puncture, in case your car overheated or whatever, right? And then you get there and that does happen. He come down here, he circumnavigates both of the New Zealand islands. Then he comes over, discovers, for European perspective, the eastern coast of Australia, goes up, and then they hit a coral reef and have to drive the ship up onto the beach at Cooktown and start cutting down trees and repairing the Endeavour while it's on the beach on its side. That is unbelievable.
Just it's kind of like an F1 driver doing their own pit stop in the middle of a race.
Yeah, but he's in the middle of a paddock somewhere.
Yeah, that's right. Just doing laps in a paddock.
It's really crazy. From memory, he was really happy that I think he'd only lost, because he did a couple of trips. I think it was the first one where he'd only lost a couple of crew members, and I can't remember what that was to. But then they went to
I believe the first member who passed away was it Torby or Forby Sutherland, and he got buried, understandably, where Sutherland is now.
Oh, really?
There's a plaque out there where he was reportedly buried. Apparently, I've been meaning to check it out every time I go up there, but I haven't actually done the right research to find out where the hell it is. There is a plaque.
Mm-hmm.
No one talks about where it is though, but I believe it's the first. It would have to be the first white person buried in Australia.
You'd think so. Because I don't like the things they died of. It wasn't like they were getting diseases and stuff. And he was and they weren't getting really into too much conflict with any of the places they were going to. Like there was some conflict at times, but it was very much about trying to avoid that, which gets lost a little bit with some of the more modern retellings of history. Look at us turning into a history podcast. But then they went to...
but not a rugby league history one.
No.
So this is before rugby league, so I'm actually not too keyed up on all this stuff.
Okay, then they went to, I believe it was Singapore. I think it was Singapore. And, of course, it was a very different sort of place. And heaps of his crew died of disease because it wasn't a very sanitary place. He was very upset by that.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. My history research only really peaks around 1893.
Okay.
Yeah. And really tees off in the 1900s, mostly in Australia. It's a bit coincidental with, rugby league and stuff like that, but I'm sure that's just a coincidence.
No, it's probably just a coincidence. Anyway, so yes, Ottawa moved. They moved to Cornwall, and they're going to be called the Cornwall Crows. And lots of pissing and moaning about away games and things like that. And it's kind of weird that there was that much whinging about. It's literally like if you and me said, you know what, our podcast is now going to be done from Moscow, and that's it. And we just declared it like there's nothing there. Yeah,
it's a pretty pissy complaint to make, especially when you consider how far Australians have to travel. I mean, they're worried about driving for 5 hours to a football game. We can't drive to watch games in Auckland when we're in Australia.
Yeah.
Just let that sink in. Try and drive for 5 hours from Sydney to watch a Melbourne Storm game, or a Gold Coast Titans game, or a Broncos game, or a Cowboys game.
Well, you can
Jeez,
get
I was gonna say, even try driving from Bondi for 5 hours to get to a Penrith home game.
Seriously, I've been stuck in traffic for 2 hours and still been in Sydney. I know that the trip to Canberra, depending on, let's call it the flow of traffic, can be around about 3 hours. You can get it down to 2.5 if you've got really good traffic. But
well, you need to be pushing to get from Canberra to Melbourne in 5 hours, because you still could drive north up to Yass. You're kind of driving the wrong direction to start with.
You reckon?
Otherwise it's a bit of a windy road going down through the snowy.
Yeah.
The better drive, but it's a longer one.
I don't mind the drive. The only problem with the drive to Canberra is you end up in Canberra. Outside of that, it's a nice drive. I like it.
Yeah. That is a disappointing. You go, we're finally at a destination.
Damn it.
Can we go somewhere else now?
Damn it. Yeah, the best traffic conditions I've ever had was going to Canberra, I think it was, and I was in really good traffic conditions. I was like, let's see how good this traffic can really be. It was pretty crazy. I would have had my car crashed.
You get out to the outer suburbs there, and it's just roundabouts everywhere.
Well, yeah, and the roundabout.
That's how they keep everyone there. Is it just make everyone get dizzy and they don't end up driving back into the city again? Hang on, wasn't I trying to leave this place? And you just get stuck in there.
And none of them know how to use a roundabout. The closest to having a car crash was at a roundabout. I'm driving, there's a car in front of me, further down, have a look into the roundabout, one of the massive ones. I'm like, oh, yeah, there's nothing coming there. Oh, this person has stopped. It's so scary.
Half of them are indicating when they enter and exit. The other half are just indicating when they exit. Some are indicating when they enter, but when they exit. You stand there looking at all these indicators going, what the fuck is this prick doing? And what's this one doing? What's he going to do? And you second guess and you sort of jump out like someone using a manual car for the first time. Just jump.
So anyway, yeah, there was that.
We will get back to rugby league here soon.
And yes, here's some information that Andrew didn't know before the podcast, and I made sure he didn't know. So it's been an announcement by the International Rugby League.
Oh, yes.
And it was made on Twitter, and it said, the board of the International Rugby League has agreed that the Golden Boot will not be awarded in 2021. And there's a quote here that says, the Golden Boot is the most prestigious individual award available to international players, and to exclude such a large part of membership seems unfair. So what they're basically saying is that because some other teams didn't play, the games that were played don't really count.
No, what they're saying is because England played and were not convincing in either of their two performances, let's just not worry about it until they've actually had a proper win. Because remember, last year, there was an international fixture played, and they said, no Golden Boot that year either.
Yeah, and the thing was too, because I've been thinking about the King of Rugby League Awards, which is the most prestigious rugby league award on planet Earth.
And they'll be coming up soon.
Yes. Do you know, we don't have an International Player of the Year award. It is a Representative Player of the Year award.
There you go.
So it encompasses state of origin, but it does encompass international rugby league games as well. And I will take into account every game that I've seen. And the award winner will be just and satisfying to our listeners.
Yes. It would be great if it was someone who played, say, for the combined team against England.
Imagine that. That would be pretty funny.
But we'll see what happens.
Yes.
I generally don't know, so I'm not giving away any spoilers there. I'm not really that involved in it, but I know there's been no real conversation about it yet.
We had the only time I would say that you were utterly involved in it, and we do talk about it, but we haven't for this year yet. We'll probably talk about it in a week or so. What do you reckon?
Yeah, sounds good.
So, but yeah, if people got pissed off about it, I'd say it's all Andrew.
And you know what? You can do that because the governing body for rugby league worldwide has called me an expert. So, that you don't get any higher praise than that. So, who can you argue with that about?
Exactly.
That's the top level.
Is there any news that you've seen that you'd like to bring up, Andrew?
The other thing I've heard and only seen around on Twitter is there's talk that Luke Brooks could be going to the Knights.
Mm-hmm.
I'd just like to say in regards to that. Oh dear. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I agree. I thoroughly agree. Now, before we get on to what we're going to do for the majority of the podcast, we got another email, and it came in a couple of days after our email episode. So I thought I'd read it out. It's an interesting subject. I haven't read the whole thing yet, but it's from Chris, and the subject is the legacy of Mitchell Pearce. And he says, what is the legacy of Mitchell Pearce? Is he an overachiever, underachiever, or was he as successful as he could be? I think Mitchell Pearce will have a complex legacy, but with the caveat that he won a premiership. Love the pod. You legends are getting me through uni. So thank you for that, Chris. That's a really good question. What do you think about Mitchell Pearce's legacy?
Here's the thing with Mitchell Pearce. He's a bit of an enigma, right? The poor bastard was up against it from the very get-go because of who his dad was.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that helped him is the fact that his dad wasn't a half. He was a forward. So the comparisons were never going to last long. It's just the fact that, you're Wayne Pearce's son. That automatically gets people's eyeballs on you. I think a lot of people expected a lot more out of Mitchell Pearce than probably he even indicated that he had.
Mm-hmm.
And it was probably just because of his dad, and that was all. And so I think for the most part, in a lot of people's eyes, he's seen as an underachiever. But I think at club level, I think he's been, for the majority of his career, not so much the last 18 months. Not that he's been horrible, but I think he's tapered off the last 18 months.
Yeah.
I'd say he's been pretty consistent at club level and at worst reliable at club level. I mean, it's only been the last few years that he's actually started to get injuries. He played I think he was one of the youngest players to ever get to 200 NRL games.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he's been that bad. He's a better defender than most halfbacks.
Definitely.
Again, something that's tapered off in recent times. His kicking game's always been, safe.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably go with safe. I wouldn't say it was threatening or anything like that. He's always had a pretty good passing game. His running game has had moments where it's been really good and moments where he put it in the back, in the back seat and just went, let's not worry about it. So he does draw a few comparisons for me with someone like Mitch Moses, except Moses tends to disappear a lot more than Pearce does and stay disappeared for a lot longer. Not just in games, but over the course of a season as well. I don't think Pearce has been woeful. I don't think he's a world beater either. I think he's just sort of, he's in that Luke Brooks sort of region, probably a little bit better than Brooks, but around that sort of area, he's probably in the top, at his best, he's in the top 10 halves in Australia or even in the world, I guess. It's solid. I'll go with solid.
Solid. Okay. I remember hearing about Mitchell Pearce when he was way before he hit first grade. I don't want to sound like Phil Gould, but there was a lot of hype about him before he hit first grade. And I think the fact that his dad was Wayne Pearce didn't help that fact, but he was hyped up, especially by Andrew Johns, weirdly enough, saying this kid is going to be the next great thing. And at the time, rugby league in New South Wales in particular was looking for the next Andrew Johns, because we were just leaving the Andrew Johns era, and greatest halfback I've ever seen. A lot of good judges say he's the best halfback of all time. And if he's not the best with those judges, they would say he's one of the top 3 at least. Yeah. And so I think there was definitely a feeling of we want the next great halfback. And there was a lot of thought it was going to be him. He won a premiership early. And everything seemed to be on track. I think that his record at Origin level really started hurting him, and the fact that it coincided with New South Wales losing so many games and so many series didn't help. I think if they were winning even a couple of series here or there, you wouldn't think about his time in Origin as poorly as you do, because let's face it, he was not good at Origin level. And the thing about Pearce is great defender, but when the pressure was on, he wasn't good. And I think that that's the big thing about how we rate playmakers is what they do in the big pressure situations. It's not even as much about, did they win a premiership in my point of view. It's like, did they get the job done when they were called upon? And I think that was Pearce's Achilles heel. And I think that that's why Pearce, you wouldn't say he's like, you think of the hierarchy of halfbacks just in the last, say, 40 years. And you think of like Johns and Cronk, Thurston, Kamali, Sterling, players like this, Ricky Stewart, Alan Langer. He definitely isn't in that sort of place.
No.
I think he's probably in the thing behind them on the Jason Taylor level, where you can say, you know what, he had a really solid, long-lasting career, but he wasn't one of those halfbacks. That's how I would describe him.
Yeah, that's fair. It's pretty much, around the same sort of region I'd have him as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's I think too we'll find that over time his impact on the game will be regarded as less and less, and until he's pretty much remembered the same way people remember Shane Perry.
Well, here's a question for you. At their best as a halfback, who do you think was better? And I'm not a fan of this player. Do you think Mitchell Pearce or Craig Gower?
Craig Gower?
Yeah.
I'd have to say Gower. At the absolute best?
At the very best.
Yeah, I'm taking Gower.
Part of me would take Gower too. Now, why would you take Gower?
I think he's a little bit more reliable in clutch moments.
That's what I would say as well.
You find some people when there's a play that needs to be made to help win a game, the genuine elite players want the ball, and those who are less likely to back themselves will take the ball if it's thrown their way. Otherwise, they're not going to go looking for it. And I think Gower was someone who would try and get his hands on the ball and try and do what he could to try and win a game. Whether he was effective at it or not, it's a different thing. But yeah, you've got to have the gumption to have a crack at it first.
Yeah, and like I would pick Gower in saying that the Panthers 2003 premiership win, all of their most important playmaking was done by Preston Campbell, and it wasn't even close. I think Craig Gower's influence on their performance that year was highly overrated by a lot of people. But at the same time, I kind of agree with you. I would pick Craig Gower for the exact same reason.
Experts.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you know what? They're kind of similar players in that, their kicking games were okay. They were pretty good for a halfback, but they weren't elite. They were both very good defenders, very, very good defenders. And it's the little things, it's those little extra things. It's weird. And so, yeah, that's kind of the category that I would have him in.
Yeah, it's fair enough, I think.
Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to look at all of the YouTube comments, which you're the one reading them. I don't know what we're in for.
Neither do I. I've not read them either. That's how good I am. I've got a feeling there's quite a few, so we'll see how far we get.
Okay. Are we going from the ones that are...
We're going in chronological order, my friend.
So we're going from the very early days.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So we're not going to know what the hell they're talking about.
That's fair enough.
But let's start out by saying that whatever opinion these people might be arguing with, they're wrong.
Yeah, 100%.
So we're just going to make that clear from the outset.
Yeah.
So let's see. We've got an article. One here was on the Greg Inglis retirement and something about the salary cap. And Rugby League history said the birth of Fergo and The Freak. Not quite, but it is on the list here for some reason.
Yeah, he's a big listener of the podcast. He'll be listening to this one now.
Yep.
He's right now he's doing a season review for every single club. So if you want to check that out, just put in Rugby League history in YouTube search, and you'll see he's got the blue logo. Just click on his logo and check out the videos.
Yeah. Next one here was 2 comments here for the Dying Club's relocation expansion in the NRL. This might have been our 2nd episode.
I feel like it was, yeah.
Yeah. Rugby League history again, 10 months ago says, I know some Manly people who are anti-North Sydney, but I think LeagueFreak is probably one of the most anti-North people I've ever heard.
You know what? I agree.
Can't argue with that. And Jason, 2 years ago, said Sunshine Coast is a no-brainer. That's almost prophetic, isn't it?
That is, yeah. That is.
Let's see what we've got here. On the Israel Folau update, why Rugby Australia can't win and why NRL Magic Weekend is stupid. And someone using the name Sonny Bill says, make Australia straight again.
Oh, jeez.
It's not Sonny Bill. It's someone who's got that account. But that was, yeah. I think, here we go. The Fergo and The Freak NRL podcast trailer, which is, I think, what you put together.
Yep.
Someone by the name of Nadine said, love it. So thanks for that, Nadine.
I wonder if she ended up becoming a regular listener of the podcast.
That's a given, isn't it?
Well, you'd hope so anyway.
Yeah. There's a video here where I did my NRL Round 17 footy tips in, 2019?
Mm-hmm.
And I did it with my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
She would have been 4, just turned 4 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so the video's actually got a thumbnail of a rainbow unicorn with a rainbow in the background.
And she drew that, didn't she?
No, this is one that she found on online, but there is one on there that we both tried to draw on Microsoft Paint.
Okay.
Which is less impressive. But on there, my sister's on there. She just posted love hearts. So thanks for that sparkling whatever that was.
Must be pretty cool having a creative sister.
Yeah. This one here, Blake Austin is not a POM plus the ARL's double standards. And someone by the name of Rakesh Hubert said, this affair reeks of a top-level cover-up. Pius Mark Coyne, Todd Greenberg and Peter Beattie condemned, blacklisted and destroyed Christian Israel Folau's future just for quoting the Bible. These 3 stooges are obviously unfit for the job, not Israel Folau, who's a great role model and a good example to everyone.
History will judge that comment.
Yeah. That's aged well. Thanks, Rakesh. The terrible NRL coaches, terrible NRL clubs, and Matt Moylan getting KO'd video.
Wow, I tell you what, can't you just hear my voice putting these things together? Like, it's just blunt as shit, these podcast names. Jeez.
We just played the straight bat on everything.
Yeah.
And, Rugby League history again comment on this one saying, Rugby League project has been like a Bible to me for a number of years now.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thanks, man. That's what we're aiming to try and do.
Yeah, that's why I put in all the effort.
Episode 69, the most offensive, filthy, disgraceful Rugby League podcast ever. It's someone going by the name Geelong Number 1. with Southern AFL logo thing on there. Says Sydney, South Melbourne got the nickname the Swans after a lot of players from Western Australia came over to play for South Melbourne, and the name stuck. So officially they are the Swans, but old fans still use Bloods.
Okay.
But don't take offense about this Geelong number 1, but I just don't give a fuck.
Yeah, like that's an interesting one. I like, at least we know now.
I've forgotten already. Final suspensions, eye gouging, and hair pulling. Samuel Bayliss.
Oh, yeah, Samuel Bayliss. He's a regular listener.
He is. He left his comment. He's saying, loving the shows. Tony Williams getting the call up on par with Dragons playing Miranda. Looking forward to the past grand finals and history episodes. Yeah, we'll get around to that.
Yeah, we need to do some of them.
Yeah, that was only 2 years ago you made that comment. Thanks for reminding us. Rabbitohs versus Seagulls NRL finals wrap up and naming the top 5 wingers in rugby league history. And Sam again comes in saying, interesting to see what Annesley comes up with after this.
Wow.
I'm sure it's some bullshit.
Yeah, it's interesting. When was that from?
2 years ago.
Yeah, and since then, Annesley has come up with some fucking garbage. Some of the worst shit we've ever seen in rugby league.
Now, this one's actually got 4 comments.
Oh, no.
Israel Folau looking to return to rugby league with Tonga, and Sam Burgess gets a slap on the wrist.
Okay.
Thomas McGilvery said, Yahoo Sports News, Wednesday, 25th September 2019. It was reported that Folau has now admitted that 5 months ago his controversial Instagram post breached the Sports Code of Conduct of Rugby Australia, which surely will not any of his future court cases against Rugby Australia. Whatever.
Okay.
Kudos 47s has, the moment you declare a set of ideas to be immune from criticism, satire, derision, or contempt, freedom of thought becomes impossible. Apparently Salman Rushdie said that. He was a great comedian and rugby league commentator, wasn't he?
He was.
And someone's name that I can't pronounce has left 2 comments here. Not like he needs more money. His wife is a star in Netball World. LOL. I hope he plays for Tonga.
And of course he never did. He never got close to it.
Nope. The 2019 NRL Grand Final review and player ratings. Hayden Ottey says, I feel robbed, boys, and I'm a Raiders fan. 25 years of misery just to lose like that. The indecisiveness in that particular decision costed the game. The game, in my opinion, deserved an 8-all finish at worst from the Raiders' point of view. The team that won Golden Point would have been worthy legit premiers without a question, but it wasn't to be.
Man, it's got to suck for Raiders fans because I think that they felt like that was the start of something and it was kind of the end of something.
Yeah. It fell apart after that.
Yeah.
It's odd. You don't often get to see a moment in a game that breaks the soul of a club, and it takes them a long time to recover from it. But that kind of was.
Yeah, they didn't grow from it, and I think that the problem was that they just said, well, let's come back with the same stuff this year. And, you know, that worked for Penrith, but because it was such a young team, you knew that there was going to be natural development from their players. The Raiders weren't a young team. And, you know, if anything, we saw most of their older players decline pretty quickly to the point where you get to this year. And, I mean, the straw that broke the camel's back was that game at Penrith Footy Stadium earlier this year when the Panthers just smashed them. And they whinged their way out of Penrith Footy Stadium, and that kind of was it for their season.
Yeah. Now, it's at this stage that it's pretty clear that we started recording podcast episodes where your views on Wales started to become known.
Okay, you say that like I'm not speaking the truth about Wales.
No. I'm not making any judgments whatsoever about your
okay.
Wales comments, but
okay.
Patrick Oliver,
yep.
Started becoming a regular commenter anytime you said something about Wales.
Okay.
He's got one very long comment here.
Yep.
I'll start with just the start of it. The rest of it is just expanding on that thought. So.
Yep.
How many players have Wales even produced in both codes? Really? Okay, let's go down that road. And that's pretty much what he does. He goes down that road. He doesn't. Let me be honest. He doesn't mention many. So he's mentioned Billy Boston, who I mentioned.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah, definitely.
Clive Sullivan.
Yeah, he definitely star. Great star.
Yeah. And then he says, who's this here? Anthony Sullivan was a dual code international and was part of the St Helens team that beat Brisbane to win the World Club Championship. He reached 2 World Cup semi-finals with a Welsh team that had the likes of. You ready for these other big names?
Anthony Sullivan.
You blatantly forgot.
Andrew, do you remember Anthony Sullivan? What a great player he was.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Here's the others that you forgot. You Welsh-hating prick. Lee Breers, Yeston Harris.
Please. First of all, let's kick 5 field goals when we're up by 40 points. Fucking show pony. And I bet you money you wasn't born in Wales. But if that's the gold standard for Wales, I stand by everything I say.
Yeston Harris. Let me just say too that in his efforts to try and talk about how many great players have come from Wales, he's actually spelled Yeston Harris's surname wrong.
Really? How's he spelled his last name?
No, this guy spelled it Harry's.
Oh, okay.
With an E in there.
Yeston Harris, I'm pretty sure he was born in England as well. By the way, Yeston Harris, he switched codes. He left rugby league, and I worked out that I think it was 43 minutes of rugby union that he played before he was called up to the Welsh international team. And let's
be honest, that's a pretty long wait for a rugby league player to make an international appearance in rugby union.
You know what? It was the record, and then
Sam just turned up, didn't even have to play a club game.
No. You know who I think broke it first was remember that dude that played for your West Tigers and then went to the Marita Korobidi? I think he was called Straight Up.
Yeah.
But having not played a game. So I think he broke the record.
All right.
But, Yeston Harris, he's not even a first grader in Australia.
I was thinking Jonathan Davies. You remember him from that try at Wembley. Also played in the 1987 Union World Cup team that came third, beating Australia in the bronze game. Because everyone remembers bronze wins.
Who gives a shit? I don't give a shit what he did in rugby union.
And the one you forgot.
No, rugby league, he was crap. I'm sorry. I watched him play for the Cowboys. And it was all of this big hype talk about him, and he was fucking garbage.
The one name you forgot. Kieran Cunningham.
Oh, don't forget Kieran Cunningham. Kieran Cunningham, he has his own gravity, Kieran Cunningham.
I heard you readjusting that comment there because I know what it used to be.
What?
I think you self-censored. Or actually, we had to edit out an episode once where you made comments about Kieran Cunningham.
Listen, Andrew.
Don't create more work for yourself.
Yeah, you know what? I'm weighing it up. Hey, yeah, I won't create more work for myself.
Yeah.
But let me just say, Kieran Cunningham is the most overrated rugby league player in the history of rugby league. He wasn't even one of the top 3 hookers when he played in Super League. Like, if he's the best that they've got, just the conversation's over. And by the way, born in England once again.
There you go.
It's like all of the best things out of Wales apparently don't come from Wales. Imagine that.
Oh, hang on. What about Tyson Frizzell?
He wasn't born in Wales either.
He was born in New South Wales.
There you go.
Then there's also David Watkins. Morgan Knowles.
Yeah, Morgan Knowles. What a wonderful player Morgan Knowles is, yeah.
Regan Grace.
Oh, Regan Grace, yeah. We keep on hearing about what an incredible player he is. I'd like to see it one day, hey?
As far as union goes, do we even need to go down that route? Well, no, because we don't care, so I'm not going to read the rest of that.
Well, all the best union players ended up playing league at one point. And look, here's the thing about Wales, right? They go on about how much they love rugby union, and they're not fucking good at it. Like, does anyone go into a rugby union World Cup saying, you know what, we're going to fucking keep an eye on Wales? No, they don't, ever. Wales have not won a rugby union World Cup. They've not been close to winning a rugby union World Cup. No one fucking cares about Wales. I don't know when the next rugby union World Cup is. You know who's not going to win it? Fucking Wales. Australia's rugby union team is made up of a bunch of fucking guys that are just off the plane from different parts of the southern fucking Pacific Ocean and a bunch of private school fucking losers from North Sydney. Yeah. And they always do better than Wales. Fuck off, Wales Rugby Union. It's the most overrated shit in the world.
Now, the last comment he's got here is, what's your population? 24 million? Ours is 3 million. Career change, maybe. And so I actually replied to it at the time saying, Australia's provided vastly more elite league and union players than Wales has, probably even more than 8 times as many more. Because he's talking about how our population is 8 times bigger. So I was suggesting that, there's been more elite and union players coming from Australia than Wales.
Well, how about this? The Brisbane population's 2 million. Look at all of the talent that's come out of Brisbane compared to Wales. Case closed.
There you go. He didn't like that because he said vastly more, 8 times as many more union players. That's surely a joke. And
it's not. It's true.
He goes on further. I'm not going to bother going no further. We get to the next episode, the 2019 Rugby League Nines World Cup, what we thought of it and how it can be improved. And Patrick's back.
Okay. I went to that, by the way, both days.
Yes. And he says, he's laughing. He's saying, you must have caught your missus in bed with a Welshman.
And well, it'd be easy because she'd come in disappointed.
And then he has another one saying, spot on with Regan, yet Bennett has picked Hall and McGovery for Great Britain, dinosaur selection. Well, at least we can agree on some things.
Yeah. Remember how good that the English team went in that Nines World Cup?
No.
No one gave a fuck. Even the women's team was shit.
NRL Rumours play movement for 2020, Bradford Bulls and France versus Australia A. And someone using the tag All NRL says, how long do you guys reckon Daly Cherry Evans will stay at Manly?
I reckon.
Now he's made that in late 2019, early 2020. Okay. I'll say he'll be there until at least the end of 2021.
I reckon. Do you reckon Cherry Evans would go up to the Dolphins?
No, I don't think they'll chase him.
I don't. Yeah, I feel like
he'll stay at Manly, and then when they get sick of him, he'll go over to England.
Oh, you reckon?
Yeah, he'll go over to France.
Okay.
And he'll make a ton of money over there.
How old's Cherry Evans now? Cherry Evans has got to be
30? 31?
Is he 31 this year coming up?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay. He's still playing well. There's no... He's not losing it as a player. But I'm just thinking if, when 2023 rolls around, he would be nice to have, but I don't know. I feel like they're going to go for someone else. And, how long are you going to have him there? If I had to put my money on him going to the Dolphins or France after being at Manly, I would go with you. I'd say France.
Yeah. International footy wrap up and what's wrong with rugby league in Great Britain. And Patrick's back. And we're starting to see a turn in Patrick.
Oh, really? I've started convincing Patrick, eh?
Yeah. You've raised some doubts.
Okay.
And he's come around. He says the problem is 2 of the best rugby coaches on earth are ex-Great Britain rugby league coaches, but they're coaching in union. Sean Edwards, from what I know, doesn't have a plan after the third place playoff game against the All Blacks. Get him in. There's absolutely no way Super League will ever again get rid of promotion relegation. The concept of franchises in any sport in the UK is absolutely loathed with a passion by everyone. Yeah. New clubs in expansion areas, yes, but merging Hull KR with Hull FC will never, ever happen. Closing off Super League from promotion and relegation was despised. It'll never happen, whether it needs to or not. One thing is killing Great Britain Rugby League, the RFL. They're a joke.
Yeah, look, I agree with most of that. I don't think we would have ever said to merge Hull KR and Hull FC.
Look, I probably did just because I was suggesting, as not saying that that's the sort of thing they had to do, but just tossing up ideas of how extreme they've got to start thinking to try and improve and change their fortunes around. They've got to start looking at out of the box ideas to try and make things happen, because doing the same shit all the time is getting them nowhere.
Yeah, 100%. And look, I understand that English people have an idea about sport that includes promotion and relegation and all that stuff. And look where it's got rugby league in the UK. Like, you can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And, you know, it's all well and good to say people in the UK don't like franchises. Have nothing then. That's fine. Have nothing. That's cool.
Yes. Next one. Tonga beats Australia. Great Britain lose to a poor New Zealand team and international footy wrap. And Patrick's back.
Yeah, I like Patrick. I don't not like Patrick.
Patrick's good.
Yeah.
I'm liking the evolution of this relationship too.
I know.
You
know what it is, Andrew. Eventually, you can start hating me at first, but then over time, I overwhelm you and crush your soul, and you have to like me.
People just learn, you know, that you're just a lovable bloke after all.
Yeah. It's like me or else.
So he starts this one with, "Oh, you knew I'd tune into this episode. Ever wonder why we're not playing in these recent internationals? We qualified a year ago. We've also made 2 semi-finals in our recent history. And yes, we won the first ever Rugby League International, which was in 1903.
I thought it was 03?
Something like that, which is real relevant in 2019.
Yeah.
You do make a good point about qualifying in different geographic areas of the world. Australia and New Zealand qualify for World Cups in soccer by beating uninhabited islands. We have to play Germany, France, Croatia, Italy, etc." That's soccer talk. I don't know what that's about.
No, that's fair enough. He's right there. Of course, Australia have to qualify against Asia now because we ditched the other conference. And because what we used to do is we had to beat everyone in the Oceania conference in soccer. And then we would play I think it was 5th ranked South American team. Last time I heard, South Americans are pretty good at soccer.
Yeah, they're pretty good at it.
Yeah, and we would have to beat those teams, and we did. You know, and that's how we'd get to the World Cup. Now we qualify through Asia. And since we've been doing that, we've made it to every single Soccer World Cup since. But, you know, England's pretty good at soccer. I've seen the archival footage.
At least they won a World Cup in that one.
Yeah, true. It's fantastic. I was watching some old film of it. It was when they were good. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Did you actually have to manually roll the film to watch it?
Well, now they've got it all on YouTube, and it's
that helps. That helps.
Obviously, it's in black and white.
Yeah.
But that's still, they won 1966. That's nothing wrong with that.
No. The media versus Latrell Mitchell, defending a young man who's done nothing wrong. And Bilya Kriskos says, "Good one, boys." Thanks for that, mate.
Thank you for that.
The disastrous British Lions tour and Fiji and Papua New Guinea play out a classic. And we've got Patrick back again.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long one, Patrick. I'm not going to read that out. Starts with Northern England have failed to produce. That's Britain's problem. He's not arguing with us on this one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's coming around.
It's true. It's true.
And someone here by the name of Sefo Arsui says, Australia have done more for us in the Pacific Rugby League and the world than what England and Great Britain have done for 100 years of bullshit international. They want ESL coach, mate. Bennett is a great coach. There will be no difference with ESL coach. But the excuses from the North, it's because the Pacific teams have NRL players. Mate, if England or Great Britain played Australia, it would be 50 plus. Saves the English blushes. Is that your account?
No, it sounds like something I'd say. But he's right. It's always weird when, you know, there's a certain mindset with some people, and it's not everyone, it's some people within English Rugby League, where they look at the NRL and they think an Australian competition. And I think I don't think anybody that follows an NRL club thinks this is an Australian competition. It's kind of like it's a melting pot competition, you know. And so when we see players from Fiji and Tonga and things like that, we don't look at them as being, say, imports, for instance.
No.
They're just the players, Whereas in England, they look at and they see the imports, and I think that influences the way that they look at our competition. And then they'll say, like, Australia does nothing for International Rugby League, and it's like, well, have a look at the amount of players that have been developed from other countries by what eventually is the Australian Rugby League system. And look, it's all performance based. It's not like the Australian Rugby League clubs or based clubs look at Pacific Island nations and say, we want to do something great for these nations, so we're going to develop these players. They're looking for the best players and talent they can find. And a lot of them tend to be from New Zealand or Tonga or Samoa or Fiji or PNG or wherever. But yeah, it's, I always think of the Auckland Warriors and when they come into the competition. And New Zealand Rugby League was pretty good, but it wasn't what it is today. And what it is today has been developed because they have a team in the NRL, and that gets overlooked. And, I think it's fair to say that if you look at Super League, some of the resurgence of the French team is because there is a French team in Super League as well. But Australia's been doing this sort of stuff for quite a while, and I think it too often gets dismissed by people in not the Northern Hemisphere, but mostly England, who they think England is on some moral high ground that it just isn't.
That's right. What do we got here? A podcast for Julie.
Okay. I think Julie needed a podcast because she was either bored or she was about to have a baby or something.
I think she was just bored.
Okay.
Let's shout out to Julie. How are you? I think she did become a mum a few months back.
Yeah, a few months ago. Yeah.
So hope everything's going good there. Bilya Kriskos is back, and he says, you didn't mention Madge is the new coach, and the signings have been much better since Cleary left the club. And Politis is Packers' mate, probably Murdoch's mate. They know they just lost the face of the NRL. It's a damage control. Teams are also big money corporates. Images, everything. But this is my opinion. I have no facts to back any of this up. Nice show. I'll listen again in the future.
Well, that's cool. I wonder who it was that he was saying was the face of the comp that the game had lost.
I don't know.
I can't remember who it would have been, hey?
And Sefo Asui is back saying, compulsory 8 to 10 week summer league NRL World clinics, teaching and spreading of skills, and NRL IP to Asia Pacific and America. That's how to fix shitty off-season behaviour.
That would be pretty cool, actually. I like all of those ideas.
Just make them work.
Yeah.
I like it.
Did you see that there was another article a couple of days ago about South Sydney and Manly playing a preseason game in the United States?
I did see that, yeah.
They fucking every fucking year it rolls around, and it never happens.
I was waiting for the one about China.
Yeah, well, Manly is normally linked to playing games in China.
Yeah. And
I know that the Souths have played, I think they might have played Leeds a number of years ago. They might have done it a couple of times in, I think, Jacksonville. They played them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that Manly never plays anywhere else.
No.
Can't even get Manly to play at North Sydney Oval.
No, well, I mean, why would you? There's a tree on the tree where the stand should be.
Exactly. It's got a cricket pitch in the middle.
So, should the NRL buy rugby union in Australia? And Ralph Rimmer quadruples down and thunder and lightning. I don't know what that was about.
Mm-hmm.
Home One said, interesting idea, but World Rugby would prop up union in Australia as it does in other countries. Even if the standard went down to a second division standard in terms of international test rankings, they keep it going on life support somehow. The problem, as you say, is there are no players coming through as their best players are picked off by the NRL beyond private school level.
Yeah, he's right on the second part. On the first part, I remember hearing the former Australian Rugby Union CEO, John O'Neill, and he was talking about, I think it was I think it was during the Australian Super League war.
Yeah.
And after that, an Australian Rugby League was in a very poor state financially. And he talked about what would have happened at that time had the World Rugby Union, or whatever they called themselves the IRB at that point. But if he had have gone to them and said, give me, because there was a big headline that come out, and it was John O'Neill saying, I'll buy rugby league. Now, Australian Rugby Union, if you took all of its money that it has ever made in its entire history, has never, ever been in a position to buy anything in regards to rugby league in terms of clubs or infrastructure or administration in its whole history, right? But there was that big headline, and it caused a big, big sensation at the time. And I remember years later he said if he had gone, that he talked about it with some international types, and the appetite for allowing Australian Rugby Union to get an influx of Australian Rugby League talent was zero. And so I tend to think that if you went and you did buy Australian Rugby Union, or you said we're going to become a stakeholder, and there were rugby union types that went to the International Rugby Union and said, hey, we need help, I think that there would be plenty of rugby unions across the world that would say, you want us to spend tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to help Australian Rugby Union? How about no?
Well, exactly right. I'll tell you what, though, the only time in the history of both rugby codes when rugby union would have had any hope of buying rugby league here, it would have been during the Super League war. That's the only time they would have, only because the clubs and the games itself were on shit budgets.
Yeah.
But just because that would have been the only time they could do it doesn't mean that they were financially strong enough to do it. They would have been relying on loans from all of their, private school links and every other half-rich person in the country to prop it up. And it wouldn't have been feasible at all. That would have been the only time that I can think of where if they were going to do it, they probably would have got closest to pulling it off. Then.
I tend to think it would have been driven by the broadcasters at the time who had...
Pretty much.
Yeah, they had obviously picked up rugby union and was starting professional rugby. Well, they started paying taxes, the players.
They had Super 14s where it was then? I can't remember.
I think it started off as the Super 10s and it went up to 12s and 14s.
But when they had that going, that was at its infancy then, and that was quite popular on pay TV at the time. So it was doing all right on TV rights deals and stuff then. And I think Australia had won 2 World Cups in a row or something like that. So the game was sort of in a bit of a purple patch. Whether they had much money because of that, I don't know. But as I said, rugby union was in a good spot then, and rugby league just wasn't. It's the only time really in the history of the two codes being in existence when rugby union and rugby league had that massive chasm in their fortunes, with rugby union being faring a lot better than rugby league. Most of the other time it was either level pegging or league was better.
Yeah, and the other thing is too that it was all at the top for rugby union, and rugby league spends a lot of money, downstream, and rugby union wasn't doing that, and that's why they're in a really bad position now. They won't spend the money on development. And by the time they realised they needed to spend money on development, they turned around and realised that all of the NRL clubs and now the New South Wales and Queensland Cup clubs, they were all just buying any young rugby, league and union talent that was around, and they missed the boat. And that's why there's so many internationally born players in that Australian Rugby Union team, because there's no talent left in Australian Rugby Union. I think, I don't know if I've said this on the podcast, but I think that the both codes will merge eventually down the track, but I think it's going to be just the process of rugby union taking a slower approach to changing their rules in the same way that rugby league did, to make the professional sport be what it needs to be a professional sport.
It might happen a lot faster. There's talk that Peter V'landys could be weighing up his future over the Christmas break. He might take up a gig at the Rugby Australia.
How do you imagine if he goes in? He's
netted them a good TV rights deal already.
Yeah, I was going to say, imagine if he goes in and then negotiates an even a bigger discount on those rugby union rights deals, and Channel 9's like, this guy's great. He just. By the way, the Australian Rugby Union's TV rights deal would be $2 million more than the NRL grant this year to 2 NRL clubs. So NRL clubs normally get $13 million a year. They got $14 million this year. And so that's $28 million. The Australian Rugby Union TV rights deal is for $30 million.
That's nuts.
It is crazy, hey? That shows you the difference.
Yeah. Patrick Oliver also says, an England, France, Celtic nations, Wales, Ireland, Scotland comp would be good. Wales, Scotland and Ireland would be competitive as one, albeit with a fair few heritage players. Also, South Africa has already started moving. There are 2 teams in the Pro 14. And he goes on about South Africa.
Yeah, because I was talking then about the time, because you could tell South Africa was going to leave the Rugby Union Super Rugby competition, and they did that finally. They've done that now completely. That's over now.
The 2019 King of Rugby League Awards. Sefo Asui is back, and he's added this to it. I don't know if he's making suggestions for other awards or not. But he said there's the Golden 13.
Yep.
Boots of gold.
That would be, I guess, the best goal kickers.
Perhaps, yeah. The Elite 1 boot and the Golden Selection.
Okay. I wish he'd told us what he was meaning by those ones. In 2019, we said James Tedesco was the King of Rugby League that year. So,
yes.
Yeah.
The Earl Park Riot history episode.
Mm-hmm.
Samuel Bayliss replied with, "This is crazy. I can imagine Saints fans skull with that axe."
That's hilarious.
And John Superdude says, "Please do a video of the World Cup draw."
Okay.
No. Here we go. The 2021 Rugby League World Cup draw and other random chat. And George McPherson, he has looks like a Leeds United logo, so we can kind of see where this is going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Typical Aussie saying nothing nice about England. Well, 2 can play at that game. Us English can say nothing positive about Australia. The NRL is going backwards. It's funny how you lot think that our rugby league is going backwards when it is the NRL. You had several teams that either went bust or had to merge with other clubs. Rest in peace, Australian Rugby League.
That one didn't age well. That one aged really poorly.
Yeah, well done, George.
That was like an English dude that just hit his 20s. It aged really poorly.
I was going to say, I'm surprised that he was able to make a tweet on a YouTube video from 2021, but he made the comment in 2000. It's pretty impressive.
There you go.
Let's see, what else we got here? Rating each NRL club's possible spine for the 2020 season. And Sefo Asui is back saying Sean Wayne has a boring style that plays into the hands down here.
Yeah, I agree. He's going to be really bad for them in the World Cup. He's one of these English coaches that he won because he was at one of the clubs that spent money. And yeah, it's not going to go well for them. So we'll see what happens.
Kevin Sinfield is not one of the best players of all time. # goats in field.
Yeah.
And Ben replied, "Agreed the picking of Sinfield is ridiculous, but to listen to an Aussie calling English rugby league self-absorbed is beyond parody."
Okay.
It wasn't parody.
No, whatever.
Check out
He's like, you know what? You lot are right, But what are you talking about?
Check out my gold Rolex.
Okay, that was a classic.
Asui has Pirate is rugby league's #1 media anti makes me aggro.
Who is?
Pirate. So that's was it Peter Fitzsimons?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. St Helens lose to the Sydney Roosters in the World Club Challenge again, and NRL All-Star Game talk. Cepho is back saying the hype of World Club Challenge is overrated when the All-Stars blew that out of the park skill-wise.
You know, I was thinking about the World Club Challenge today. We haven't played it now for a couple of years. Has anyone missed it?
Not really.
No.
It's a hard concept to get behind.
Yeah, it's fucking boring.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean anything.
No. The NRL Checkmates Channel 9. Don't know what that was about. No. But Cepho's here saying, good work, fellas. Listening to it right now. Good yarn in these tough times. Thanks. To quote Carbone, fuck Channel 9 instead.
Nice.
I'm not too sure he was on about there, but yeah. All right, so that's where we're up to there. Shall we keep going?
Yeah, I'm cool to keep going. Are you good to keep going?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got tons of time.
Okay, cool.
Let's see, what's next on here? The breaking Greg Inglis to make a comeback in 2021 with the Warrington Wolves in Super League.
Mm-hmm.
Colin Hoyle, we've got 3 comments here.
Oh, wow.
Colin Hoyle says, he definitely won't be playing at fullback. Why have probably got the best fullback in Super League in Stephen Rashford and the best up-and-coming fullback in Matty Ashton, who's one of the fastest in Super League. He'll probably be in the centres or second row loose forward.
He was pretty right about that, although Inglis didn't play much footy. And we talked about it on the podcast. He didn't look good. He's actually, he retired again.
Yeah.
And then he's unretired in the last couple of weeks. He's going to play for Maxville, I believe.
That's right, yeah.
In one of the country competitions.
Yeah. Try5 says, I'm a Warrington Wolves fan, but he will be the replacement for Ben Murdoch-Masila. So he reckons he was going to be a forward. And bring back the shoulder charge, bring back the biff. Reply to that with, try 5 Inglis's ain't the same he once was. Anyway, he's just ruined his career by choosing a shit team who hasn't won a grand final for 65 years.
You know what, it's interesting. I thought he would go better, but he just really never got started. That's what it come down to. I think that if you could do that over again for him, you'd say you need to be under 100 kilos just to take pressure off his body and his knee in particular. And then, but you know, you looked at him, he was carrying so much weight. He's very disappointing. He's really, really disappointing.
Yeah, he struggled big time. He didn't look like he was fit enough at all. That's a shame because it would have been interesting to see how he would have gone in the Super League.
Yeah.
The Greg Inglis to Warrington, Paul Gallen looking at a comeback, and Joe Rogan's massive deal.
Yep.
Harry says, the thing about his position is Warrington have Blake Austin at 5'8" and a fullback with Matty Ashton, who is a really promising youngster, and Stephen Rashford. So I would think he will play second row with Murdoch-Masila leading.
Okay.
Keen on him going to the second row. Probably would have worked over there, to be honest.
I just can't. I remember watching him and thinking, man, this is it's not good. And I only saw the first game he played, and it just was really, really bad. It was basically the opposite of what you wanted to see from him.
Yeah. Breaking, Bronson Cherry tests positive for banned substances.
Yeah.
Melinda Feld says, do any of you commentators want to ask why it took 6 months to get this supposed result? That is what I am questioning. I don't understand why it took so long. We can get any other test results in days.
I know that they've got to do the A sample and then the B sample.
Yeah.
I don't remember it taking 6 months though. I believe it was a pre-season test, and he was banned before the season kicked off. It wasn't like it had happened at the end of last year.
No, and he's coming out of injury as well too.
Yeah, yeah.
The Greasy Gamer, who's a Sharks fan, because you can see the logo there, and he just said, "This is terrible."
Yeah, terrible. Really was.
Let's see.
What's it going to be like? He's probably got probably about 18 months left on that ban. Are you looking forward to him being a Tiger?
Yeah, I'm wondering if they'll put him at centre or wing.
Yeah, I would guess they probably would. I mean, they love a centre.
I'll tell you what. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out and says, I'm so much bigger now.
We'd have to. Look, if I got banned for drugs, like a banned performance-enhancing substance, I would roid the fuck up. Because why not? What are they going to do, ban you again? It's not like you're under their testing regime for that 4 years. Yeah, he should roid the fuck up.
Just turn up and he's just 140 kilos and it's all just muscle.
Yeah, 100%.
What could go wrong? The 2020 Ashes Tour cancelled on British Rugby League chat. Simon Hughes says, "You guys are talking about France, Australia helping France in the International Rugby League. Here is a bid for a French team based in New Caledonia, a team to join their Queensland Cup team. We call the Pacific Tries? That one, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
13 in French.
Yep.
That's the one.
Because they weren't allowed to use the name rugby.
That's right.
In France, they were banned from using the word rugby, so that's what they used.
That hung around until 1991.
Yeah. It's fucking unbelievable, isn't it?
Insane. Absolutely insane. Let's just wait. Best available coaches, Brisbane expansion, England versus Exiles, and John Bateman to Wigan. And me gave a comment saying, Broncos headquarters north of the river, east base south, east centrally located in Brisbane, Seagulls to the east. Good people who don't know about City have views on expansion. Don't know what that's all about.
I don't think we ever took a view of that we knew better than people in Brisbane, ever. Did we? Like, no. I don't think we ever sat here and said, oh, this is how it should be and stuff. I think through the whole thing we've been like, look, it's up to the people of Brisbane and what works best for them, because it is a complex situation, you know?
Yeah. Now, this is in response to, there's two replies here in response to the interview we had with Nick Livermore from the Brisbane Bombers bid.
Yep.
Jason says, I'm an expansion nerd. I think a Sunshine Coast NRL side makes so much sense. And Simon is back and he says, great episode. I enjoyed listening to the Brisbane Bombers. I hope you can get some of the other expansion groups. I'm very fascinated with the Pacifica 13 team, the French Polynesia, and the New Caledonia and Vanuatu franchise if they're allowed to join the Queensland Cup.
I haven't heard anything about that team.
No, neither have
I.
Yeah. Phil Gould is wrong about the obstruction rule. And Pomoy A says, like music to my ears, love the 40-minute rant, guys.
That's awesome.
How to fix the New Zealand Warriors. Simon Hughes again says Auckland Rugby League did buy the Warriors 18 months ago and sold it again to Ortex Industries.
I didn't know about them selling it again.
No.
I knew that they'd purchased it. I didn't know they'd sold it again. Did you know that?
I hadn't heard anything about that.
Yeah, I want to look that up after the podcast. And that's the end of part 1 of this 2-part episode. It's the first 2-part episode that we've done. And what we found was there were so many comments from this point on that we just had to put it over into another show, unfortunately. But the next show is going to be good. Now, just on Ortex Industries, I looked it up, and they originally owned 33% of the Warriors when the Auckland Rugby League did purchase it from Mark Watson, I believe it was. And then they upped their stake to 100% soon after that. So they do, in fact, own 100% of the New Zealand Warriors. How about that? You learn something new every day. So the next episode, part 2 of this, is going to be out probably on Sunday. It could be out a little bit earlier, but we'll see. But we always lock in Sunday as an episode that we're going to record anyway. So that'll be it at the very latest. Thank you for listening. Check out the website, fergoandthefreak.com. Check out rugbyleagueproject.org. Check out leaguefreak.com. As always, check out both of our Patreon pages. Andrew's one is patreon.com/RL Project. Is that the one? I believe it is, yep. And my one is patreon.com/LeagueFreak, no spaces. You can see it all in the description anyway. So if you're wondering about all of our links and stuff, I've put them all in the description. I've changed the description up a little bit and how that's all linked up anyway. So go check that out. Once again, thank you for listening. We love that you listen. If you want to get your comments read out, go to your YouTube and check out some of our latest videos that we've got up on there. They're all just the podcast episodes. And leave some comments. Make sure you subscribe too. But it's an easy way to get your comments read out in the next episode. So thank you for listening, and we'll catch you soon.